Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. Say something in the chat. Let me know you're there. Hey everyone, it is Wednesday. You are listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key. And on today's show, we are talking foreclosures and student loan debt forgiveness. Two exciting topics that are in the news headlines right now. In particular, we want to talk about the foreclosure crisis. And I first want to start by giving a little background before I introduce our guest. There is information about the foreclosure crisis of 2008 that we all know in general. There is information that we all reference with regard to the foreclosure crisis of 2008. But I want to let you know that a foreclosure crisis, it's the recipe which reverses the trend of rising home ownership. And here's why. With the foreclosure fallout in 2008, interest rates increased when loans reset. Remember the risky loans, the subprime loans, the pick-a-pay programs. And I really want you to think about this. This was an opportunity for people to get into home ownership without putting much down, without verifying or confirming what they were earning, paying very minimum, being able to pick to pay the minimum on a monthly mortgage payment. It seemed like a great idea at the time, right? But with that foreclosure fallout, when those interest rates increased after those loans reset, there were also no incentives for borrowers to stay in their homes. And so they just walked away. This would be the first time in history that mortgage companies would experience the amount of fallout, the amount of foreclosures that occurred. So they weren't set, they weren't ready. They had no systems and processes in place. In addition, simultaneously, the Great Recession occurred. It deepened and it prolonged the economic downturn as people lost their jobs. They had trouble paying their mortgages. From 2008 to 2010, America saw 3.5 million homeowners foreclose. Think about that. And then think about this. Those risky subprime loans accounted for 22% of the purchases between 2005 and 2008. 22%. Guess what percentage they accounted for during the fallout between 2007 and 2009? Subprime mortgages accounted for 64% of the foreclosures between 2007 and 2009. So again, I'm reiterating that foreclosure fallout, it resulted in a decrease in home ownership and an increase in housing burden, because now that you no longer own your home, you now become a renter. Minorities were disproportionately affected and impacted, Black and Brown communities. They experienced steeper home ownership and wealth declines during that time. In Sacramento County, over 40% of African Americans owned their homes prior to the foreclosure crisis of 2008, over 40%. A majority of those gains were lost after the foreclosure crisis. During that time, African Americans and Latinos experienced a higher unemployment rate during the recession. They had fewer savings and less forms of wealth that would have normally enabled them to make payments when they're faced with unemployment or underemployment. So that was a key factor. When those risky loans reset and the interest rates went up, it meant a greater burden on the person who was in that home, and they had to make a decision. So not just hundreds of people, but thousands of people walked away from their homes. Nationally, about 15% of homeowners were underwater in 2011, 15% nationally. And states like California, Nevada, and Florida, between 40 and 60% of homeowners were underwater. There's a wealth of research that shows that minorities had a higher foreclosure rate than whites across urban areas. And nationwide, African Americans and Latinos accounted for 8 to 11% of mortgage originations, but accounted for 12 to 16% of the foreclosures. So fast forward now to 2022. The consequences of that foreclosure crisis are still being felt. Any household that's paying more than 30% of its monthly income on housing costs is considered cost burden. And so when we look at US Census data, it tells us information on Blacks and Hispanics. It says that we are the most cost burden when it comes to homeownership by race and ethnicity. We're now coming to what could be a similar crisis with the pandemic and inflation affecting and impacting so many. Redfin reported that 5 of the 10 US housing markets that have cooled the fastest this year are in Northern California: San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco, Stockton, and Sacramento. So as we can see, communities of color will be hit the hardest by foreclosures as they start to trickle in. We're going to take a look today at how to get in front of this. We want to make sure that history doesn't have an opportunity to repeat itself, because that is ultimately what could be happening here. And so I want to welcome our guest today, Ms. Rebecca Franklin. She's the president of the CalHFA Homeowner Relief Corporation and the director of risk management and compliance at CalHFA. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and she's been here before, and I'm happy that she's taking this time and this opportunity to share with us as we talk about getting in front of this situation. And we are much better prepared, not only as a country, but as a state, for such a time as this. And so tell us, Rebecca, what is the California Mortgage Relief Program? You've talked about that before, but refresh our memory, because there are some new expansions that you all have.
So the California Mortgage Relief Program is a program established to help California homeowners who've fallen behind on their payments around housing, their mortgage payment, or their property tax payments now through the financial impacts of the pandemic. So for your mortgage payment, so that's a combined, so if you have an escrow with your property tax and insurance, we have a one-time grant up to $80,000 to help homeowners catch up, as well as the expansion that we did announce in past June, just a few months ago. We are now helping homeowners with property tax. So maybe you don't have a mortgage, you paid off your mortgage, and that's a one-time grant up to $20,000.
Wow, that's quite a bit of money. So how is this program being funded?
The program's being funded through the American Rescue Plan Act. So back in March of 21, President Biden established the American Rescue Plan Act, which established the Housing Assistance Fund. And that's a recognition of how homeowners were impacted by the pandemic financially, and that California homeowners specifically. So California received actually about 10% of the nation's allocation, that entire fund, just over $1 billion. And I want to point out that this fund is really dedicated to supporting low to moderate income households. So the fund is for homeowners to catch up on those payments that they missed due to the pandemic.
Awesome. And so who qualifies? Let's start with who qualifies, and then we'll go to how do you qualify?
Yeah, so who qualifies? Really looking at that moderate to low income household. So homeowners that are at or below 150% of their area median income. And I know that sounds like a lot of words. And I personally was like, I don't even know what that means when we started the program. And so if you visit our website, camortgagerelief.org, we have a calculator that's very easy. You put in how many people live in your home, the county you live in. So for example, in Sacramento County, a family of 4, you have to make at or below 150,000 annually. So it's when we talk about low to moderate income households, I think some people count themselves out, but really that is a generous number. So if you're at or below your annual income of your household, also you must be in a single family residence. So just your household, and you must be occupying that residence. You also must be at least have been 2 mortgage payments behind as of June of 22. We just reset that date. Prior was December. So 2 mortgage payments behind as of June 22, currently delinquent, or 1 payment of your property tax.
And so with this program, I remember that many of the lenders during the fallout, and there were tons and tons and tons of short sales happening. In order for a borrower to qualify for a loan modification or some type of program where they could stay in their home, they had to be behind. And many people actually started missing payments just in order to qualify for the program. Is there a chance that we're going to see that happen again just for them to be able to qualify for this? Or are you guys already knowing that people are behind and this is the reason that you're setting up these parameters?
Yeah, so we don't want to promote people, missing their mortgage payments if they absolutely can't afford, if there's other options. This program is one of many offerings that California homeowners have. We also encourage people who maybe are anticipating not being able to make their mortgage payments to see a HUD certified housing counselor. That's also a free service to California homeowners to see what options are. But we at the California Mortgage Relief Program, what we do is we're monitoring closely the delinquency rates in the state, looking at what's happening, seeing what the trends are. And that's a recognition of that data, collection and analysis of why we chose to reset that delinquency by date, that we realized that, the pandemic economically is still affecting people and still affecting these communities. And so we want to make sure that we're staying current towards the market needs. And we are, always looking for ways to make sure that we are being as impactful as possible. But we obviously don't want people to, miss payments intentionally. That we really encourage, if you feel like that's something that's going to happen, you were recently laid off, that HUD certified mortgage counselor is a really good opportunity, a free opportunity for you to educate yourself on other ways to help your situation without falling behind.
I love that. And so you said that there's HUD certified mortgage counselor information on the website?
Yes, you can go. You can also, if you call our contact center, which is the numbers on the website, we will actually help you look up someone who's local to you. That would be the best fit for your situation. And I just want to emphasize, it's a free service. It's free. You can come, they'll look at your specific scenario. Everyone's case is different and unique. And so I just really think that educating yourself around what options there are is a really great opportunity, and it's free.
We always love free. Thank you so much. I appreciate you again taking the time to be here today. And the website again, if you're watching online on social media, it's scrolling right there along the bottom, camortgagerelief.org. If you're listening on the air, it's camortgagerelief.org. And as Rebecca stated, go to the website, find their phone number, find a mortgage counselor. If you think that's a direction you're going, if your job is in jeopardy, sometimes we get the notification that they're getting ready to downsize, or, if you see that it potentially could happen, get in front of it. That's what this program is for. Help you stay in your home. I think that if many of us could look back to 2008, there would probably be some things we might do differently, knowing what we know now, which might have helped us to keep our homes. I was one of those who bought before 2008, and I had to sell my home in a short sale. And knowing what I know now, I would have robbed Peter to pay Paul to keep that house. So I really appreciate this program through I appreciate the California Mortgage Relief Program. And Rebecca, thank you again so much for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So we are going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the next hot item on our agenda, which is student loan debt forgiveness. It happened, and it happened yesterday, and it's going to have an impact one way or the other on some of you who have student loans. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I'm Agent Key, and we'll be right back. Rebecca, thank you again.
Have a good day.
You too. You're free to go. Bye-bye. Hey, you guys, thank you for tuning in. Oh, I see all the comments now. Can you repeat? Repeat. Kiara. Yes. Oh, do you see? So you probably see the link. I think I got to your message after I put the link up there. So let me go back to the comments. Hello, Glenn. How are you doing, sir? So someone messaged me last week and said, hey, while your video is playing, we can still hear everything you're saying when you go to break. And I told her that's kind of one of the benefits about watching the show online versus listening to it on the radio. If you're listening to us on the radio, then you get the music during the breaks, right? But if you're watching live online right here on YouTube, we are actually now on LinkedIn. Yay. Hey to everybody on LinkedIn. But you get everything that's happening in between. So we try to keep it lively when we're on break, but we don't do a whole lot in between while we're on break. We do read through the comments, which is what I'm doing now. So Linda Lee, hey, Kat, that's my mom, y'all. Kat is my nickname. Don't anybody ever call me Kat. Just she gets to call me Kat. Don't you call me Kat. Don't do it. Let's see. Why we have to qualify the original unpaid principal balance of the homeowner's primary mortgage. Can I be greater than? I bought a home in 2005. Nobody had conforming loans. Prices were much higher than the rest of the USA. Most of Californians cannot qualify for the program because of it. That's a great question. And so I'm sure as I was talking to Rebecca, one of the things that I mentioned, and I don't know if you heard me say this, was that there were no programs, processes, or systems in place when we had that mortgage fallout. Let me know how much time we have before we go back. And so these lenders, the mortgage companies, were kind of making it up as they were going, and not necessarily making it up, but they were fixing things. They were creating systems and processes that worked for everyone because there were no systems in place. So I see that happening again if we start coming back into another foreclosure crisis. So just as you're saying, most Californians won't be able to qualify. They're going to learn real quick. They're going to hear very quickly from everyone that they need to adjust these programs. And we're back, y'all. Hey, everyone, we're back. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we are selling Sacramento. Today's show, we are fending off foreclosures and student loan debt. So it happened. Biden to cancel $10,000 in student loan debt. Low-income students are eligible for more. So I've been following this story for a long time. And depending on which news source you go to, you're going to get pretty much the same information, which is what I like about this particular story, but coming from different angles. So this article that I'm sharing is from the New York Times. And I just want to read it straight from the New York Times so you know you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth. I'm not making it up. The debt forgiveness comes after months of deliberations in the White House over fairness and fears that the plan could exacerbate inflation before the midterms. So President Biden announced the student loan debt relief on Wednesday is happening for tens of millions of Americans, saying he'd cancel $10,000 in debt for those who earn less than $125,000 a year and $20,000 in debt cancellation for those who had received Pell Grants for low-income students. We all know what that Pell Grant is. I just felt a chill in my body because I remember getting the little slip of paper, when you sign up, register for classes, and it tells you what kind of grants you receive. Pell Grant was on there. So this is pretty exciting because the $10,000 had been in everyone's mind this entire time. But for those of us who, that P word, boy, it just got a little bit more exciting. Now, I know that a lot of you listening right now have a tremendous amount of student loan debt. And you might think $10,000 or $20,000 is not even going to put a dent in what it is that you owe. But it is something, and it is the beginning. And so with anything, we don't want to just, I wanted to use the phrase, look a gift horse in the mouth, but that probably wouldn't be correct either, right? So we want to make sure that if you know someone who is struggling right now with student loan debt, this is how we get this information out to them. $10,000 if you earn less than $125,000 a year. And if you received a Pell Grant for low-income students, that amount will be $20,000 a year. So the debt forgiveness, although less than what some Democrats had been pushing for, comes after months of deliberation in the White House over fairness and fears that it could exacerbate inflation before the midterm elections. So all this means people can start finally climbing out from under that mountain of debt. That's a quote from President Biden. To finally think about buying a home or starting a family or starting a business. And by the way, when this happens, the whole economy is better off. That's his quote. And I was telling someone yesterday, and I had always thought about this in the back of my mind with regard to student loan forgiveness, that I believe, even though it is something that we really would like to see happen for the majority of Americans, for the Biden administration, I think it was important and is important that they do it if we're talking about home ownership. Because student loan debt, any type of debt, there are 2 or 3 big hills that the underserved or the most vulnerable buyer community are faced with when it comes to home ownership. Number one is credit challenges. Well, actually, number one is probably coming up with the down payment and closing costs. Number 2 is credit challenges. And then number 3 would be student loan debt. So many people are straddled with that and struggling with that. And if we look at why that is, then we have to start dealing with some things in U.S. history that we don't want to talk about, like the school system. We are trained and conditioned that the best jobs are where? Right out of college, right. But you got to get there. And that was probably 20 years ago, the thought process. But today, the world we're living in today says, college? What? No, I'm about to be an influencer. I'm going to be a millionaire in 6 months, 9 months, And it really is a viable option for those people who can channel their gifts, who can find the value within themselves and offer it to someone else, get out on that social media platform. And as much as many of us who don't come from that area don't want to buy into it, yes, Dosty's over there raising his finger because he has a hard time getting online. It's just the way things are going. So much has just gone to the social media platform jobs are turning, everything is turning into technology and AI, artificial intelligence. That's the direction that we're going. And college is still a very viable and necessary option, because what college offers, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm just summarizing and saying this is all college is, but it places you in a space where you can explore other avenues and opportunities. But I would like to go one step further and say that people should be exposed to other opportunities before they get to college. I want to give a shout out to PS7, St. Hope Schools. My daughter attended PS7 when the school first started. She started in kindergarten, and day one out the gate, their homeroom numbers were the year they would graduate from college. Above each door, class of 2022 or class of 2019, that's what they pushed. The other part too, I remember her first field trip in the second grade or third grade was to Stanford. I think my first field trip was to the zoo, Sacramento Zoo. Not that, maybe I might have thought zoology or, might have been a career choice for me, right? But when you get exposed to something like Stanford in the second grade, leaving the city, going onto that college campus, just seeing the people, seeing the history, there's something that happens inside of you. I took my daughter on we called it a college tour when she was in the 11th grade, I think. And we drove down to Southern California because there were about half a dozen schools that she wanted to look at. Honey, I was ready to sign up for USC. I don't know. Have y'all ever been to the USC campus?
Yeah.
Holy macaroni. I was just blown away. But again, they're being exposed to something different. When you're exposed to things you've not seen before, there's something inside of you that will start to connect and say, hey, this might be something you want to do, something you want to explore, something you want to see. And so it's important that we expose our children to these things early. I really digressed, y'all, but y'all know how I get when it comes to philosophy. But back to the student loan debt. So what does all of that have to do with student loan debt? If we're conditioning our society that the best wages, the best opportunities, the formula for success is high school, college. Now, as a senior or as this high school student, I'm under pressure to prepare to go to college. And I don't know if you all know, but the price or cost to go to college has not been decreasing. It's been increasing. And so now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to pay for it? And if the government will give me, this is the crazy part, and I know this is not the first time y'all are hearing this. They'll give me $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to go to college at 18. What if I had a business that I wanted to open at 18 and could write out a very substantial and well thought out business plan? Some of these young adults are doing that right now. And so I'm not saying that there's not a need for college, but I'm suggesting that we emphasize exposing people earlier to alternative paths. Because what happened to the trades? What can't get nobody to fix a car no more. Women don't know how, and yes, I'm traditionalist. Women don't know how to sew or cook anymore. There used to be classes on that. Don't nobody call me or text or anything talking about when men need to know how to sew and cook too. I know y'all know how to cook. Yeah. Yeah, they said they don't. So, but there were classes that actually prepared us for life's experiences, what we were getting ready to encounter. Can you imagine if there were classes that actually taught you how to balance your checkbook, how to save money, how to be an entrepreneur when you were in school? Imagine if there were classes that actually taught you beyond life skills when you're in school. The reason that I'm bringing this up, because as we talk about waiting on the government to cancel all of this student loan debt, all is not lost. There are still things that, if you are saddled with that student loan debt, there are still things that you can do personally to help get you out of that debt while you wait. And then so the $10,000, the $20,000 will just be a nice little cherry on the top to help you get rid of it. But contacting the debt center, finding out, exactly what it is that you owe, and then get to work on a plan, either to get into a repayment plan. And now I'm shifting gears to homeownership preparation. Get to work on setting up a repayment plan so that when you're talking to a lender, a mortgage lender, and they run your numbers, your financials, even if your credit score is not quite there, they can tell you what you need to do to get that credit score where it needs to be. And most of the time, especially recently, I am seeing so many buyers with student loan debt be able to get into home ownership simply because they are in a repayment plan on their student loan debt. So somebody listening might have been afraid to even call them, to contact them to see what is it going to take for me to actually, thinking that if they call them, they have to get rid of the debt, or thinking that they call them, they have to pay hundreds of dollars every month towards it, which would take away from something else. But that's not the case. So right now in this season, contacting these student loan service centers can help position you for home ownership. And that kind of takes me back to my point that I was making about the Biden administration. I think they're being intentional towards trying to get rid of this student loan debt to increase home ownership among the most vulnerable buyers. It's kind of like a wag the dog thing, but I'm here for it. I love it. And if this is how he has to get it done, then this is how he has to get it done. He also announced that a pandemic era pause on student loan payments, which has been in effect since March 2020, would expire at the end of the year. So it was supposed to expire at the end of this month. Now they're pushing it back to expire at the end of the year. The debt relief plan will almost certainly face legal challenges, making the timing of any relief uncertain. So we don't know if we're going to see it, because there are going to be some other people that may oppose that. Across the United States, 45 million people owe $1.6 trillion for federal loans taken out for college, more than they owe on car loans, credit cards, or any other consumer debt other than mortgages. President Biden has been agonizing over how to address student loan debt for months. He's been under pressure from progressive Democrats who say debt forgiveness is necessary in order to address racial disparities in the economy. But critics say widespread debt forgiveness is unfair to those who tighten their belts to pay for college. And Republicans and Democrats contend that it will add to inflation by giving consumers more money to spend. Students who received Pell Grants will be eligible for $20,000 in debt forgiveness. Around 60% of borrowers have received Pell Grants, and the majority come from families making less than $30,000 a year. The Education Department estimates that 27 million borrowers will qualify for up to $20,000 in relief. Those numbers are just tremendous, mind-blowing. But that's what happens when you've kicked the can so far down the road, right? I want to go to some of the comments. I see you guys, if you're listening on the radio, if you want to chime in and join in on the conversation, go to the social media pages. We are now on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Look for Selling Sacramento. Look for Agent Key Matthews. And I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Tiffany said, yes, hope they take mine away. Delete that student loan, please. Right. You are right. We had trades in school, economic classes, sewing, etc. Yeah, exactly. Valencia said home economics was one of those elective classes when I was in high school. Yes, we remember that. And they were beneficial. They were beneficial. Nicole says, I was one of those people, a lot of student debt and one in default. I made a payment plan and now I own my first home. Thank you, Nicole, for that testimony. Thank you. And oh, shoot, that was Nicole Griffin. That was my client. I didn't even. Yes, she's absolutely right. We were in the middle of the transaction and Raymond Upchurch, her lender, just did some magic. I don't know. He knows some FBI people or something. But what we thought was going to take a whole other month took like 11 days, and we closed escrow on Nicole's house. Thank you for that testimony. So, you guys, we are going to take another break. I've been running my mouth. Oh, it's only 1:37, but we are going to take a break because I want to reset the room and come back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to prepare for home ownership as it pertains to things like student loan debt, like Nicole just gave her testimony. I want to take away some of those fears that you might have. I want to address some of the misconceptions that are out there that might be preventing you from pulling the trigger on home ownership. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about that. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I'm Agent Key, and we'll be right back. Hey, Miss Nicole, girl. Valencia, you know what? Vivi. Now, you told me your name. It's not Vivi. Is it Angela or some? Type your name in the chat because I see the initials all the time. And I forgot what you said your name was. Unless it's Vivi. Let me know. Let me know. Kiara. Hey, girl. I meant to say, hey, if you're still watching, what is up? Great topic. You are so welcome. You are so welcome. Yes. Let's see. Andrea. Oh, that's right. Because I was like, Andrea or Andrea? Is it Andrea? I'm gonna wait for her to type it in. Yes, Andrea, or no? Because I'm going to say Andrea now that I remember. Actually, I'm going to type it in my phone so I can remember. My brother's name is Andre. So I'm trying to make that connection now in my mind. That's my brother's name. Just add an A. And my niece's name is Andrea. So I should remember this next time. When I see Vivi, that's Andrea. Got it. Okay. All right. So I am on this 30-day workout program.
Really?
I'm cool with it anyway. And I think you said that before. Okay. Andrea. All right. Yeah, it's a 30-day workout. I'm on day 4 of 30. Is that our reparations?
Well, for some reason, it's not playing my headphones.
Yeah, I'm hearing it over here.
No, I know my headphones is not playing.
Okay.
No, I know it's playing. The one thing I see the videos move.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Tiffany. Because, girl, it was hard for me to get up this morning. 3.5 miles, and then abs and core and arms.
That's tough right there.
Yeah. 30 days.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, we are back, and today we are fending off foreclosures and student loan debt. And before the break, we talked about just what it takes to prepare for homeownership, how important it is to deal with the student loan debt issue, the credit restoration issue, and the down payment and closing cost issue. And I said I would touch on that. If you are thinking about home ownership, and I really, we need to be. If you're just now coming into the show, at the beginning of the show, we had Rebecca Franklin on the show, the president of the CalHFA Homeownership Relief Corporation, and she's the director of risk management and compliance at CalHFA. And we talked about the California mortgage program, mortgage assistance program that they have. But before she talked about that, I gave a little bit of background about the fallout, the foreclosure crisis of 2008. The point that I'm getting to is that before the foreclosure fallout, Black home ownership in Sacramento County was over 40%. That means like almost every other person you saw was a homeowner. It wasn't about renting, it was about home ownership. And that foreclosure fallout caused a gap there. So we were working towards closing the gap of the amount of homeowners, the difference between home ownership between whites and African Americans, trying to close the gap and create more Black home ownership, making home ownership more equitable. And we were on track. That was the mindset. That was the conditioning. So we've got to be careful right now, because there is another conditioning that's happening. There's a lot of subtle conditioning that's happening. And if you don't pay attention to it, you just wake up one morning and you're in a whole nother world where you didn't think you'd be, accepting stuff that you shouldn't be accepting. Like being a renter. And why do I say that? Because you got to pay to stay somewhere. Pay to stay somewhere where, as my grandma say, can't nobody put you out. But you've got to condition your mind to that thought process, and don't be afraid to do the things necessary to get where you need to be. So now we're talking about those student loans, the student loan debt. Don't be afraid to call them and find out what you need to do to get into a repayment plan that makes sense for you, that will open the door, kick the door wide open for you to qualify for a mortgage. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to contact the folks over at Blue Water Credit, bluewatercredit.com. Have them pull your credit. Let them know that you are thinking about becoming a homeowner and you want to know what it takes, and you want to take a look at your credit report because you never have. Don't just go online to the credit websites and sign up and pay. Go a step further with a professional who knows what you need to do to get to the end game, if that makes sense. Go to my website, agentkey.com, look under the tab buyers. There's a drop-down menu. You'll see lender partners. Click on lender partners. You'll see a list of my lender partners in various shapes, colors, and sizes. Contact one of them. Reach out to one of them that it looks like you feel comfortable with, and say, hey, I found you on Agent Key's website, and I just want to have the conversation. I just started working. My credit score is 400. I don't have any money in the bank. I got all this student loan debt, but I want to be a homeowner. And watch what happens. You're going to be greeted by someone who's going to say, all right, that's awesome. I'm happy to help you. They're going to tell you, take an application, because they want to pull the real deal of what your financial snapshot is. Because sometimes there's things that go on in our finances that we totally forget about. Oh, I forgot about that kid that I had that I had to pay that money to. But you have to take the steps necessary to fix it, to put you in the position. The time that it takes to fix these things, it's going to go by anyway. Whether it takes 6 months or 6 years. 6 years from now, who are you? In 6 years, you will be the person that you start working on today. In 6 years, you will have the things that you start planning on having today. And I said 6, but that could be 1 year. Everybody is becoming something. You're becoming whatever you're intentional about. And you're intentional about something, whether you're intentional about it or not. I know that doesn't really sound like it makes sense, but intentionality is also part of your conditioning. So what are you conditioned to do? That kind of takes us back to the whole rental condition, the whole go to college condition. Check on your conditioning level. Is it right? Assess the philosophy that you have. Assess the beliefs that you have. If you tweak them just a little bit, think about being on a large cruise ship. You know how large a cruise ship is? When that captain, and I don't know what the correct terminology is, I'm just going to say, when he is steering the ship, he's not steering it the same way we steer our cars, because it's much bigger. He's turning much more refined in time. I don't even think he's turning it. I think they press buttons and stuff now, because they've got to. Turning too much in a certain direction or to a certain degree could land that ship in China instead of Jamaica. So just imagine personally, if you tweaked your philosophy or your thought process just a little bit, what is it that you might be thinking about just a little bit off, that if you thought about it differently would have you in a different position this time next year? Maybe it is housing. Maybe it is renting. What are your thoughts about home ownership, and why do you think that way? If you've never thought about home ownership, why not? Think about why you don't believe home ownership for you, and test it. I'm thinking, and I've shared this before, about a time I was in a classroom with a friend of mine who was teaching a class of, it was a summer class, and there were young girls in the class, maybe 10 to 13 years old, a classroom full of them. And it was an abstinence-based class of young girls, development, that type of thing. And the friend of mine who was over the class asked the girls, what do they want to do or be with their life when they grow up? And I'll never forget, one of the young ladies, she couldn't have been any more than like 10 or 11. And her response was, all I know is that when I grow up, I'm going to get the welfare check, because my mama gets the check and she always take it and go get her nails done. That was devastating to me. That is conditioning, ladies and gentlemen, at the worst level. We are responsible for the results of our lives. Nobody else. There are things that are going on around us. If you're working at a job and you say, this job doesn't pay me enough, that's not on the employer. That's what they pay you. That may not be what they pay at the whole company. You might be making $16 an hour. Somebody else might be making $35. You find out what it takes to make $35 an hour, and then you make $35 an hour. Don't get mad that the economy is doing what economies do. Economies go up and down, but they don't dictate what happens in your life unless you allow it to. There are a lot of things that just happen because it's just a part of life, but it doesn't have to dictate nor determine who you are or what you become or what you have, unless you allow it to. The wind is going to blow where it wants to blow, but you have control of your own sails. Yes, I did just get a little philosophical, because I really believe, and I walk in what I say. I do. I think I've said on the class, I've said on the show that I'm taking classes. I was going to say the word class. And so in a few months, I'm going to be able to share some news, because I believe in me. I invest in me. I take chances on me. I whatever I think about, if I get excited about it, if it's going to help somebody else, especially if it's going to help change somebody else's life, I'm all in. Yeah, let's do it. So now I'm investing in being more disciplined. I need to be a more disciplined. I took a real step back and examined my life to see if I want to be in a better position this time next year. What things do I need to get, as Jay King would say, eyeball to eyeball with myself, if I'm really going to make some real changes in my life? And I am quasi-disciplined, y'all, and I am becoming more disciplined. I will be a viciously disciplined person by this time next year. Yeah. For real. When you discover and believe and accept the things that you need to do to become a better you, it's almost like magic happens. and you become unstoppable. We're not even talking about houses no more. Now we're talking about just life. But y'all,
Part of it, though.
it is. It's a part of it, because in order to get to the house, we got to figure out why we haven't gotten to the house sooner. And a lot of it has to do with our thought process and conditioning and our beliefs, what we think we can have, what we, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. So before we leave the show today, so wait, I've got a comment from Andrea on YouTube. She said, first-time home buyers, listen to Ms. Matthews. I need to send this woman a check. It's all about the mindset, discipline, even sacrifice, savings, financial literacy, free classes included in home buyer workshops from my experience. That is from Miss Andrea watching the show on YouTube. And Miss Valencia said, amen. You are indeed an inspiration. Thanks for sharing. I needed to hear this today. She is always so amazing. You guys, I really appreciate when y'all come online and talk to me through the comments and let me know that not only are you listening, but that you are doing the things and taking the steps, because that's how we create this community where we all grow and we do this together, where we share our experiences and we share our resources and we grow together. And yeah, so I'm not about to get corny. It's almost time to go. Y'all, you're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key. And remember, if you are doing what you were created to do, I will see you at the top. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and I will see y'all next Wednesday. Bye.